It was the smell that got me first. I just come in from the cold, shaking snow from my boots in the narrow hallway of our place in Winter Pines. The heater was humming like usual, the lights were dimmed the way Aaron always liked them after sunset, and everything looked just the way I left it earlier that morning. Except the smell. It wasn't unpleasant, just off. Like walking into a stranger's hotel room. Sharp, musky, and masculine. I paused for a second and sniffed the air again to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Definitely cologne. And not mine. I haven't worn cologne since Aaron said it gave her headaches years ago. The one bottle I used to keep still sat untouched on the top shelf of the medicine cabinet, probably expired by now. This scent was different. Expensive maybe. Cleaner than what I used to wear. More confident. I can't explain it, but something about it made my skin prickle. I took a step forward. The hallway creaked under my boots. From the living room I could hear the tail end of some Netflix rom-com playing on the TV, the kind she usually puts on for background noise when she's alone. But I didn't head there. Instead, I turned toward the bedroom. Something had pulled me in that direction. The door was cracked open just enough to see the edge of the bed. And it was messier than usual. The comforter was halfway hanging off the side, sheets tangled and balled like someone had either been in a hurry or restless all night. But it wasn't the mess that got me. It was the way the pillows were arranged. 2 had been shoved aside. The third, the one I usually used, was on the floor like someone had knocked it off without realizing. Then I saw it. A scarf. Thin, silky, wine-colored. It lay draped across the corner of the bed frame like someone had thrown it off while undressing. I picked it up and turned it over in my hand. It wasn't Aaron's. At least, I had never seen it before. She's not really a scarf person, and if she did wear one, it'd be cotton, thick, practical. This thing was delicate. It looked like it belonged to someone who dressed to be seen, not just to stay warm. I set it back down, careful not to fold it, and my eyes moved to the nightstand. There was a wine glass sitting there, smudged with a faint pink lipstick print. Just one. Not 2. No half-eaten snacks or second glass for company. That's what did it, how neat the lie wanted to be. Jacob? I turned around. Erin was standing in the doorway to the bathroom, towel wrapped around her hair, robe tied tight. Her face looked calm, but her eyes moved too fast, first to the scarf, then to the bed, then back to me. You're home early. I didn't say anything. She gave a quick, practiced smile. Jenny from work had car trouble, she said, like she'd rehearsed it. Poor thing got stuck downtown after the office party. I couldn't just leave her hanging, so I told her to crash here. Hope that's okay. Her tone was light. Too light. Her hands stayed at her sides, not fidgeting, which is what she does when she's actually nervous. No, this wasn't nerves. This was control. This was her trying to guide the conversation before I had a chance to ask questions. Her car wouldn't start? I asked. I kept my voice neutral, my eyes on hers. She nodded. Yeah. I think it's the battery or something. She was going to call a tow, but it was already late and she had wine with dinner, so she shrugged like it was all so casual. Safer to just stay here. She left early this morning before your alarm went off. I nodded slowly. That's thoughtful. She smiled again, relieved, maybe thinking she'd sold it. Then she walked past me, picked up the scarf from the bed and held it between her fingers. Oh, this is hers, she added quickly. She must have forgotten it. Right? I watched her as she tucked the scarf into a drawer, like it was something we'd definitely return later. She didn't mention the cologne. Didn't even react to it. Either she didn't notice or she was counting on me not to say anything. I stood there for another moment before stepping back out into the hallway. I'm gonna lie down on the couch, I said, not waiting for her response. As I passed through the living room, I caught a glimpse of our wedding photo on the mantel, her in that simple white dress, me in a rented tux that didn't quite fit, both of us beaming like we'd cracked the code to happiness. The version of her in that photo and the woman I just spoke to didn't feel like the same person. I lay on the couch and stared at the ceiling, hearing her move around in the other room, humming like everything was fine. But everything wasn't fine. I couldn't explain it, not fully. But I knew something was off. I could feel it. The way her voice had too much lightness in it, like she was acting out a role. The way she stepped around the details, filled in the blanks before I could ask. The smell that still clung to the air. That wasn't Jenny's cologne. I don't care how many times they hugged. No part of me believed her. And yet I said nothing. I didn't press. I didn't argue. I just lay there quietly, trying to make sense of how small that moment seemed on the surface and how massive it felt beneath it. That night, I stared at the ceiling long after Aaron had gone to bed. The house felt different now. Quieter. Heavier. Like it was holding its breath, waiting to see if I'd ask the questions that needed asking. But I didn't. Not yet. Because some part of me, some stupid, loyal, scared part, still wanted to believe her. Still wanted to believe us. I didn't sleep that night. Even after the house went still and the heater clicked into its low hum, my body refused to settle. I lay there on the couch, the cheap throw blanket tangled around my legs, staring at the ceiling like it held answers. The room around me was dim, shadows flickering from the muted TV, the kind of late-night programming nobody watches with sound. But my mind wasn't tuned in anyway. It was somewhere else. Somewhere backwards. It's strange how clarity doesn't always hit like a lightning bolt. Sometimes it seeps in quietly like water under a door. A thought here. A memory there. At first, they seem unrelated, just static. But then something happens and suddenly they begin to connect. And that night, everything started clicking. I kept going back to the scent. That cologne. I couldn't shake it. It wasn't something someone just brushes past you within a hallway. It had depth. It lingered in the fibers of the air and it hadn't faded even hours later. That told me something. Someone had been here. Long enough to leave a piece of themselves behind. That scent wasn't Jenny's. And Erin, she didn't even try to explain it. But it wasn't just that moment. That was just the spark. What followed was the fire. My mind reached backward, replaying everything from the past 8, maybe 10 weeks. At first, I saw fragments. Harmless on their own. But the more I let them settle, the more they arranged themselves into something disturbingly whole. There were the late nights at the office. At first, once a week. Then twice. Eventually, she was home past 10 more nights than not. The team's overwhelmed, she said. Q4 deadlines. I didn't question it. I wanted to be the supportive partner. The husband who didn't hover. But now I remembered, I'd once offered to bring her dinner when she worked late, Thai food, her favorite. She thanked me but told me not to bother. I'll probably just grab something with the team. I asked her what she ate later that night. She couldn't remember. That had bothered me. Not enough to say anything. But enough to remember it now. Then there were the locked doors. That had never been a thing with us. We trusted each other. We moved in and out of each other's spaces freely. But one evening I came upstairs to grab my laptop from the bedroom and found the door locked. I knocked. I heard movement, papers shuffled, a chair squeaked. She opened the door wearing that same smile she always used when she was trying to distract me. Sorry, she said, I was just doing a Zoom call and didn't want to be interrupted. I looked past her into the room. There was no laptop open. No call in progress. Still, I said nothing. But the changes didn't stop there. Her schedule shifted in subtle ways. She started going to the gym more often. At first, it made sense, new year, new goals. She got a new yoga mat, joined a fitness app. I was proud of her, really. But then the workouts became elaborate. New outfits. A personal trainer she never mentioned by name. Her gym bag was packed the night before, laid out by the door like a school kid's backpack. I remember one night she came home with her hair freshly washed and smelling like hotel shampoo. Said she'd showered at the gym, but the scent didn't match her usual products. I didn't think much of it then. But now I could smell it again mixed with that cologne. Her phone became a fixture in her hand. Not that she hadn't used it before, but now it never left her side. It buzzed constantly, quick vibrations that she always flipped face down. I asked her once why she did that. It helps me focus, she said. That might have made sense if she wasn't also taking more calls than ever. She started leaving the room to answer them, even during dinner. Sometimes she'd laugh from behind the closed door, but when I asked who it was, her face would tighten. Work. You wouldn't know them. She used to talk to me about her job. Not anymore. I also remembered her change in tone. Her voice used to be soft around the edges when she spoke to me, lazy vowels, inside jokes, words that only belonged to us. But lately it was all business. Efficient. Distant. Like I was a coworker in the wrong department. We used to cook together, dance barefoot in the kitchen, make jokes about who burned the garlic. Now she cooked alone. Or ordered takeout. Or told me she already ate at work. I began to replay every small moment I dismissed. The way she started sleeping facing the opposite wall. The way she stopped asking me how I slept. The way she pulled away when I reached for her hand while driving. Once, during a commercial break, I leaned over to kiss her forehead, something I'd done 1,000 times. She flinched like I'd startled her. Laughed it off. Didn't see you coming. That had stuck with me. But again, I'd said nothing. The way she dressed started to change too. Less casual. More curated. Dresses for no reason. Heels on a Wednesday. Makeup she hadn't worn in years. When I complimented her, she gave me this strange look. Like she hadn't expected it. Like it wasn't meant for me. Once she came home with a necklace I hadn't seen before. Simple, elegant. I asked her where she got it. A client sent it, she said. As a thank you. She changed the subject before I could ask more. I didn't push. I told myself I was being paranoid. But tonight, after the scarf, after the wine glass, after the story about Jenny, I couldn't ignore it anymore. Because suddenly all the missing pieces had context. The puzzle had an image now. Not a clear one, not yet. But enough. Enough to know that something had happened. Something real. Something intentional. She wasn't just tired. She wasn't just stressed. She wasn't just busy. She was somewhere else. With someone else. And somehow I had become background noise in my own home. The realization didn't come with anger. Not yet. What I felt first was shame. Not for what she might have done, but for how long I let myself believe everything was fine. I had ignored my instincts. Smoothed over every crack with hope. Gave her every benefit of every doubt. I had loved her with my eyes closed. But they were open now. I turned off the TV, letting the room fall completely silent. Just the whir of the fridge and the hum of the heater remained. I lay there for hours, eyes wide, the weight of months pressing down on my chest like someone had stacked bricks across my ribs. Around 4 a.m. I finally drifted off. Not because I found peace, but because exhaustion won. And the last thing I thought before sleep claimed me was this. If she was hiding something, I was going to find it. Not to punish her, but because I needed the truth. Because I could no longer afford the comfort of lies. 3 days. That's how long I lasted before I couldn't take the uncertainty anymore. For 72 hours I tried to live normally. Ate my cereal. Went to work. Answered emails. Talked to Erin like nothing had shifted. I even smiled once when she made a joke over breakfast, and I hated how automatic it felt, how fake I was becoming just to keep the boat from rocking. She'd been extra attentive those 3 days in her own way. Small things, she made the coffee before I got up, ironed my shirt without me asking, left a note in my lunch, something she hadn't done in over a year. Hope your day is smooth. Love you. It felt like someone trying to cover their tracks, like she knew something had slipped and was scrambling to smooth it over. But the thing about scrambling? It's sloppy. And the cracks were still there, even if she painted over them with kindness. Then came Thursday. She told me she was heading to Austin for a weekend work trip. Conference and some team-building retreat. Said she'd be gone until Sunday night. I'll be with Callie for marketing, she added too casually, so don't worry, just boring corporate stuff. I didn't ask many questions. I smiled. Nodded. Said, safe travels. Watched her pack like someone studying a stranger. She left around 2 p.m., dragging her silver carry-on behind her, wearing jeans and a fitted blazer I hadn't seen before. She paused by the front door. I'll text when I land, she said. And then she was gone. I stood there, still holding my coffee mug, the house suddenly way too quiet. That's when the waiting ended. I walked upstairs to the bedroom, grabbed my laptop, and opened the browser. My heart was pounding. I knew what I was about to do. I also knew there was no turning back from it. But I needed to know. No more intuition. No more connecting dots. I needed the truth, and I was ready to face it even if it broke me. I pulled up the hotel's website. She'd left the confirmation email open on her tablet earlier that morning, assuming I wasn't paying attention. The hotel was a nice one, not the kind you'd usually book for a company retreat. Boutique, 5 stars, downtown Austin. I called the front desk. Hi, yes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm trying to reach a guest. My wife. She just checked in this afternoon. Erin L., she's supposed to be in a double with a colleague, Callie Marks. Sure, let me check, the woman on the other end said. I could hear typing, the clack of keys, the rustle of paper. Then a pause. She's in room 512, the woman said. And Callie? I asked. Another pause. The reservation is under 2 names, Erin L. and Brendan Caulfield. My heart dropped. I didn't even speak for a moment. I'm sorry, Brendan? Yes, sir. They're listed as a couple on the reservation. There it was. My hand clenched so hard around the phone I thought it might crack. But I stayed calm. Polite. I thanked her. Hung up. Then I opened my email and typed a simple message to the hotel's reservations desk requesting a digital copy of the room invoice for business reimbursement purposes. I didn't expect them to send it. I thought they might ask for ID or proof. But 20 minutes later, it was in my inbox. Attached was a PDF, timestamped and itemized. The confirmation showed check-in for 2. The names were there, Erin L. and Brendan Caulfield. Brendan. It hit me like a whisper from the past. A name I hadn't heard in over a year. He used to work at her firm. Tall, charming in a sleazy way. Erin mentioned him once or twice when they were on the same project team. He left for a startup. She'd made a joke about how he traded in suits for sneakers. I remembered thinking back then that she talked about him a little too fondly. Now he was on a reservation with her. I clicked into the invoice. There were charges for room service, 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, dessert. Not once. 3 separate times. There was a charge for the romantic getaway package upgrade. Chocolate-covered strawberries. Rose petals. Spa credits. There was nothing left to interpret. No wiggle room for doubt. The hotel hadn't just confirmed my suspicion, it had gift-wrapped it in corporate letterhead. I sat back in the chair, staring at the screen. I didn't move. I didn't blink. My body felt like stone. I don't know how long I sat there. Could have been 10 minutes. Could have been an hour. Eventually, I stood up and went to the kitchen. I poured a glass of water and set it on the counter. Then I walked to the living room where our wedding photo still sat on the shelf, framed in soft gold. I picked it up and looked at it closely for the first time in years. Erin had been laughing when the photographer took that *T, wind in her hair, veil half slipping off, eyes crinkling in the corners. I was looking at her in the photo, not at the camera. You could see it in my face, the awe, the love, the ridiculous belief that this was permanent. I didn't feel angry in that moment. I felt hollow. Like I'd been scooped out and everything I thought I was standing on had vanished. All the stories I told myself about who we were, what we had, what we were building turned out to be a house of cards. She didn't just cheat. She planned it, organized it, packaged it under the word business. Used a lie as cover, used me as cover. All while I smiled and waved goodbye from the porch. I went back upstairs and sat on the bed. On her side of the nightstand was a small notebook where she kept work notes and to-do lists. I'd never paid attention to it before. But tonight, I opened it. Inside, there were pages of daily schedules, some handwritten notes about campaigns, reminders to call vendors. But tucked between 2 pages was a sticky note. A time and place. Dinner res 8 p.m. Friday. Uchi. That wasn't a client meeting. That was a reservation at a high-end sushi place downtown. For 2. I sat there, holding that note, feeling the room shift around me. Like the walls were inching closer. The silence in the house suddenly felt like mockery. Like every object knew what I hadn't. Eventually, I put the note back. Then I did something I didn't expect. I laughed. Not out of amusement. More like disbelief. I'd been walking around this house like a man looking for his keys, not realizing his house had been robbed. I closed the notebook. Stood up. Looked at myself in the mirror. And for the first time in this entire thing, I felt something sharp rise up in me, not rage, not grief, but clarity. I knew what I had to do next. I didn't wait for her to come home. After reading that hotel invoice, after staring at our wedding photo until the frame felt heavier than the glass, I knew there was no conversation left to have. No confrontation. No last-ditch speech about feelings or trust or what we'd built. Something had broken, and I had no interest in trying to glue it back together with words. The rest of that day moved like it was underwater. My limbs were heavy, my thoughts dull at the edges, but every move I made was deliberate. I went upstairs and opened the filing cabinet in the guest room, an old metal drawer where we kept birth certificates, social security cards, passports. I pulled mine out along with a few key documents, tax returns, pay stubs, copies of my 401k statements. Erin's were there too, but I didn't touch hers. Not my problem anymore. Next came the accounts. We had 2 joint checking accounts, one for bills, one for groceries and small stuff. I logged into the banking portal and stared at the balance for a while. Then I began the transfer. I moved my paycheck and anything with my name on it into a brand new personal account I'd opened silently a month earlier when my suspicion first bloomed. I froze the joint account. Not drained. Just paused. She'd notice eventually. But by the time she did, I'd be long gone. Next, the credit cards. I had one under my name and a second with both of ours on it. I canceled the joint one. Not angrily. Not punitively. Just surgically. I printed the hotel invoice, all 4 pages. Every line item. Room service. Romantic upgrade. The full thing. I placed it in a plain envelope, sealed it, and left it on the kitchen table where she always tossed her keys when she came home. Next to it, I left a note. 1 sentence, written in black ink. My handwriting neat but tense. You know what this is. That was it. No rage. No flourish. Just the truth sitting there in silence. I packed a small duffel bag, just enough for a week. Jeans, a few shirts, shaving kit, charger, the things that would let me move without raising eyebrows. I didn't take anything sentimental. No photos. No books. This wasn't a break. It was a severance. Before I left, I unplugged my phone and held it in my hand. I stared at the black screen. Erin had texted twice that morning. Once to say she was boarding, once after landing. Just got in. Hotel's really nice. Long day ahead. Love you. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. That version of me, the one who would have answered with a joke or a heart emoji, was gone now. I deleted her thread. Deleted every thread, in fact. Emails, apps, photos. I logged out of social media, even the ones I barely used. I wasn't going to announce anything. I didn't owe the internet an explanation. This wasn't a crisis to be performed. This was mine. And I wasn't letting anyone reach me. I took one last look at the house as I left. The living room was clean. The laundry folded. From the outside, it looked like a quiet home. But inside, the walls had started whispering to me. The floorboards creaked with secrets. I got in the car and drove. No music. No podcast. Just the sound of tires on pavement and the soft hum of winter wind against the glass. My destination was simple: Richmond. A friend of mine, Caleb, had offered me his guest room anytime I needed. We hadn't talked in months, but I knew he'd mean it. Caleb was the kind of guy who didn't ask questions when it counted. I pulled into his driveway around midnight. Texted him from the curb. "Hey, you up?" He replied 30 seconds later. Doors open. Beer in the fridge. I stepped into the warmth of his small house and instantly felt the difference. No tension. No performance. Just the soft scent of pine cleaner and last night's dishes in the sink. Caleb emerged from the hallway in sweats, rubbing his eyes. "You all right?" he asked. "Nope," I said. "But I will be." He nodded, didn't press. Just clapped a hand on my shoulder and said, "Beer's still cold." We sat on his back porch in silence. 2 beers between us, stars overhead, our breath visible in the cold. He didn't ask what happened. I didn't tell him. And that was the first time in weeks I didn't feel like I had to explain myself. I stayed up until nearly 3 a.m., then crashed hard in the guest room. I didn't dream. I just disappeared into blackness. When I woke up the next morning, I didn't check my phone. I didn't open the news. I didn't even look at the clock. I just sat on the edge of the bed, breathing slowly, like I had to relearn the rhythm. Erin still hadn't called. I hadn't expected her to, not yet. She'd be flying high off whatever lie she told herself about this trip. She probably thought the deception was still intact. Maybe she even believed it wasn't cheating because she compartmentalized it. Maybe Brendan was just a connection. Something she told herself didn't mean anything. But I knew the truth. I'd lived with it, eaten dinner beside it, fallen asleep next to it. And now I was done giving it air. That day I walked. Not far. Just around the neighborhood. Saw families I didn't know. Dogs barking. Kids throwing snowballs. Life happening like it always had. But I walked differently. Head up. Shoulders back. I wasn't in hiding. I was in motion. I stopped by a coffee shop. Sat down. Pulled out a notebook and started writing. Not a journal. Just notes. Things I wanted to remember. Things I wanted to let go of. Things I needed to do next. Call an attorney. Change mailing address. Check credit monitoring. Close remaining joint accounts. Get a new lock for storage unit. I didn't want revenge. I wanted distance. Legal, financial, emotional. I wasn't chasing a confrontation. I was building a clean exit. One that didn't involve begging or bargaining. That evening, Caleb and I sat in front of his TV, watching a game neither of us cared about. He handed me another beer. "You ready to talk yet?" "Soon," I said. "Take your time." I nodded, because this was what healing actually looked like. Not some dramatic movie scene. Not screaming in the rain or burning old photos. Just quiet. Deliberate. Me reclaiming space. Bit by bit. And in that quiet, for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. Not because it was over, but because I had chosen to end it. A week passed before I opened the cloud. I had been staying with Caleb, trying to rebuild some semblance of structure. I woke early. I took walks. I drank too much coffee and watched too many reruns. I avoided news. I avoided music. I avoided mirrors. Erin still hadn't called. I'd expected fireworks, angry texts, voicemails filled with excuses, maybe even a tearful apology once she found the envelope. But there was nothing. Radio silence. Not even a question of where I'd gone. And that silence said more than any message ever could. She wasn't looking for me because she didn't need to. She'd already moved on. My exit had been convenient. Cleaner than she likely anticipated. No shouting. No drawn-out arguments. Just gone. Which made me wonder if she'd been hoping I'd disappear all along. I couldn't shake that thought. One quiet afternoon, while Caleb was out meeting a client, I sat down with my laptop and opened an old shared cloud account Erin and I had used a couple years ago to back up files. Mostly work PDFs, receipts, tax forms. She had stopped using it after getting a new work laptop, but I still had access. We hadn't shut it down, never saw the point. I typed in the password. It still worked. I clicked through the folders. Everything looked the same at first: 2019 taxes, wedding docs, vacation planning, the typical stuff. Then I noticed a folder named Budget Forecast Q3. Boring. Harmless. Definitely not hers. Erin wasn't in finance. She hated spreadsheets. I opened it. Inside were 3 subfolders, each labeled in bland corporate terms: planning, documents, backup. The kind of titles you use when you don't want anyone snooping. Curious now, I clicked on documents. There were scans of passports. Not just hers, mine too. Copies of our licenses. Our marriage certificate. A PDF of my retirement portfolio pulled straight from my account portal. A loan application partially filled out, left unsigned. I felt my chest tighten. This wasn't budgeting. This was identity prep. I moved to planning. That's where the real story started to unfold. There were notes. Typed in Erin's usual style, bullet points, tidy margins, organized into weeks. Week 1. Finalize second checking account. Transfer $3K/month for business buffer. Talk to Brendan Ree, foundation setup. Week 2. Initial inquiry, real estate cosign, drop Jacob's name if needed. Confirm investment paperwork. Legal separation timeline, soft launch versus hard pivot. I sat there, reading line after line, feeling like I'd stepped out of my own life and into someone else's. She had been planning to leave. Not just emotionally. Logistically. Strategically. This wasn't an affair born of passion. This was an exit strategy. One carefully mapped week by week. She hadn't just cheated. She'd been staging a quiet coup, taking apart our shared life piece by piece and laying the groundwork for her new one. I clicked into backup. Flight confirmations. 2 of them. Round-trip tickets for Erin L. and Brendan Caulfield. Booked under business consulting but routed through a travel agency that specialized in private partnerships. The destination was Costa Rica. Departure date was 2 weeks from now. I remembered the sticky note in her notebook. Uchi, 8 p.m. Friday. A fancy dinner. Now it made sense. This wasn't a fling. This was celebration. Planning. Closure before liftoff. There were more notes, emails saved as PDFs, messages forwarded to her personal account. One stood out, a message from Brendan titled, "Just in case he snoops. Make sure the joint stuff gets rerouted by early March. The less he knows, the smoother your side stays clean. I can float you if anything hangs. We've come this far. 2 more months. We've come this far." I closed the folder and stared at the screen, my face reflected faintly in the dark border around the files. My hands weren't shaking. Not anymore. I wasn't even surprised. Somewhere deep down I'd known. I just didn't expect to see it laid out like a business plan. I copied everything. Not out of vengeance, out of necessity. I needed records. Evidence. Not just for me, but for whatever came next. I emailed the entire folder to my attorney, attached with a single line of text. This goes deeper than I thought. Later that night, I walked to a park near Caleb's. Just sat there on a bench while the air chilled my face, thinking about the sheer scope of it all. I felt less like a betrayed husband and more like the mark in a long con. Someone whose trust wasn't just broken, but exploited. She hadn't planned to confront me. She'd planned to leave me behind. Smooth. Clean. Quiet. If I hadn't caught the hotel slip-up, I might have walked straight into a financial ambush 6 weeks later. And Brendan? He wasn't some guy she stumbled into. He was a partner. A co-conspirator. A co-architect of whatever they were building while still using my name, my documents, my money. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I called my attorney. We scheduled an in-person meeting. I brought a flash drive. Sat across from him in a small, windowless office while he clicked through the folders, frowning deeper with each screen. "This isn't just adultery," he said. "This could be financial fraud." I nodded. He leaned back. You're going to need a forensic accountant. And probably a private investigator. I agreed. We started mapping out next steps, documents to secure, statements to review, emails to pull. We drafted a cease and desist letter for any pending transactions under my name. I gave power of attorney to the legal team to monitor suspicious movement. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was countering. The moment I left that office, I bought a burner phone. I called one person, my sister, and gave her the number. In case something happens, I said. I didn't elaborate. She didn't ask. That night, I stayed up tracing back old conversations. Things I hadn't seen clearly before. A month ago, Erin had asked about my pension offhandedly while we were watching TV. Are you still contributing through payroll, or did that switch over when you changed departments? I told her. Didn't think twice. Now I knew she was gathering data. A few nights before I left, she asked if I'd considered refinancing the house in just my name for taxes. I shrugged it off. Told her we could talk about it in the spring. She was laying the bricks. I was the last one to realize the road had a destination. The next morning, I got an alert from the legal team. A flagged transaction attempt, a loan pre-approval submitted online using my name, my social, and a foundation as co-signer. The name of the foundation? LC Futures. The L was for her. The C was for Caulfield. They were starting to move, which meant I had to move faster. I spent the day calling banks, locking accounts, shifting funds, setting up alerts. Every institution I spoke to had a similar tone, calm, professional, but layered with a quiet undertone of sympathy. Like they'd heard this before. Like they knew the tone of someone who just realized they were under attack. By nightfall, I had a folder an inch thick. Digital backups in 3 places. I wasn't just protecting myself, I was building a wall. And as I stared at my notes that night, the cold truth settled like dust. She hadn't just broken my heart. She tried to erase me. The investigator's report hit harder than I expected. Erin hadn't just planned her exit with Brendan, she'd enlisted Nate. My former best friend. The guy who helped us paint our first apartment. The one who toasted us at our wedding. Turns out he'd helped her register the foundation. His name was buried in paperwork as an advisor. Worse, a forged power of attorney had been filed, her attempt to transfer part of my retirement to that foundation. It hadn't gone through. But it could have. The betrayal wasn't just an asterisk, mate, it was systemic. Friends, money, my identity, all in play. She wasn't walking away. She was replacing me, piece by piece. I sold my half of the house. Moved north to a small lakeside town in Minnesota. No announcement. No revenge. Just escape. My days became simple, reading, walking, breathing. I learned how quiet felt. Not lonely, but whole. Erin hadn't destroyed me. She'd exposed my blind spots. I used to believe love was enough. Now I believe in boundaries. In silence. In starting over without needing to be seen. My life now? Smaller. Quieter. Mine.